Good morning. Two hands that we'll review. Both of these hands are pocket tens. Uh, Unlike yesterday when we reviewed pocket tens, we are going to focus on the cutoff now. So, one reason to review these middle pocket pairs is that we tend to play a little bit too passively with them, and that's what I'm going to investigate. Perhaps I'm missing some obvious bets that would have allowed me to pick up the pot at some time in the hand, and thus improve my win rate. So in this hand, this is a 10 NL game. We have a poster here. So under the gun +1 limps. The poster checks. That could be any two cards. And then we have the first middle position player raises, second middle position calls. So the first middle position here, villain 7, he open raises 3 big blinds. Not incredibly large since we already have 2 limpers in here. He's playing 51-14. So his 14 pre-flop raise is going to be a little bit wider. We do have him limp calling with 8-7 spades. So I think that kind of suggests that instead of the suited connectors, in his range here, that his raising range may actually just be pocket pairs, and then the top cards could include ace-10, could include king jacks, and that gives us 13%. His pre-flop raise is 14%. And when we look at that pre-flop raise, you can see that really the raises are higher in the cutoff and button. Mid position 17, raise first in. I mean, if it's folded around to him, it seems like he's raising the cutoff and the button, probably with a much wider range than what he would do right here versus limpers. So we may be able to include all of the suited aces in here as well, because those are popular hands to raise pre-flop. So I think this will be this villain number 7. So let's get villain number 7. Get their range in here. So this would be MP2, and then we have villain 8 that just calls. He is playing 56-26, so he is wide. I think he has all pocket pairs, probably all broadways, probably a large chunk of suited cards, suited connectors, something pretty wide. Probably your aces. I've got 39 hands on him. That's pretty darn wide. So that's at 50% right now. Let's take out his raising range. So what do we know about this? 3-bet range is aces, jacks, ace-3 off, king-9 off, 10-9 off. He's gonna probably raise at least that. Could include some of these suited aces as well with his 3-betting range. This is a pretty large range right already. We're in the cutoff with 10 of hearts, 10 of spades. All right, so against these two, you can see that we're basically at the top of his range, the caller's range. We're kind of in the middle. I'll say middle, above 50% of this person's range. So he has unpaired cards, but he also has these pocket pairs. So while we're not like at the top, right at the top, we should be over 50% against both of those. Now, versus both of these players, I think our equity isn't going to be that great. So you can see here, this guy's equity is actually at the highest, or at least that's where it's figuring out to be 46-47%, because he has these big cards here, and once the flop comes, he could catch any pair, any of these top pairs to beat us. Against this guy's range, he's got a lot of these offsuit cards that are below our 10 that he could catch a pair and probably pay us off. That's why we're better. So overall, this is the guy that I think we need to beat. Now, what do we do? Should we raise? Should we call? I don't think we could fold. I think folding is going to be too tight with the hand as strong as pocket 10, so that gives us calling and raising. If we call, I think this guy has a possibility of calling. He calls 2 bets, 39%, and he's in the small blind. We don't know much about the button. I'm sorry, the big blind, but he does. He is the big blind. It's only 2 more for him to call in a multi-way pot. He may call there. Villain 5 paid. He limped. I think it's not unreasonable to assume that he's going to go ahead and call here. He likes the Saint enough to limp, and he's going to be close to closing the action, so he could call. Villain 6 is a toss-up. He basically has any 2 cards. I'm going to say he's going to maybe 50%. So we've got a chance that if we limp, we're going to probably have 3 more people limp in behind us, or at least call behind us. Did I say limp? If we call this bet, there's a chance that these 3 can call, and that means we take it 6-way with pocket 10s. I don't think that's favorable. I think it's much better to go ahead and raise. If everyone folds, we pick up 9 big blinds. I think that nothing's wrong with that. Now, how much should we raise? With a caller, I think we probably need to size up slightly. So a standard raise could be 9 or 10 big blinds. I think I would probably raise to 11 or 12 here. It is, risking a bit, but if we raise that, we can think about what hands this guy calls. He's probably going to 3-bet us with aces, kings, ace, king type hands. Maybe queens, and we can probably just go ahead and ditch our hand, assume that we are beat to those big pocket pairs. If he just calls, I think he's going to call. Let's see here, 10 of hearts and 10 of spades. If he calls and it's just us heads up, we now are at 60%. That's much better than where we were sitting, where he had the slight edge on us. So I do think we should raise. I just called, and we only had 1 caller, which is I think pretty interesting. So Villain 5 is calling. He's 30-12. I'm going to say his range is going to be someplace between these 2. So this is a super wide range. We're going to take out some of these offsuit hands. And I don't think most people limp with a lot of those weaker aces, offsuit aces. He could be something like this. 18%. He would have raised some other hands, and he's early position, so early position is definitely tighter. Plays 23%, raises 8%. I think that's pretty good. So let's get this. This is under the gun, +2. So against these 3 people, we'll run this and see where we're at pre-flop. Our sets are improving. Maybe we're gonna flip. Yeah, it looks like it. Maybe we are gonna be the favorite. I just think with 10s against this many players, even though we might be ahead, our hand is difficult to play post flop. So we're gonna probably stop there. All right. So let's see the board. Board is 7-4-3. All right. We've got an overpair here. What we see is Villain 5 checks. Villain 7 now bets 8. What is he gonna bet here? Now he raised and he fires a continuation bet. So we have to think about what is he gonna c-bet with. This is a fairly dry board. You can think it's gonna be unlikely to hit any of us. I think he's going to do it with these draws, open-ended straight draws, gut shots. I think it's going to do it with any pair, probably ace high as well. So 82%. His c-bet stat, c-bet out of position 78%, c-bet in positions 89%. I think he's going to fire, flop pretty frequently, and then turn. If he's out of positions, it's a little less likely to check. But I think this player is a player that's going to fire, flop, and turn, and then give up on the river if he doesn't connect. All right. So I think calling could be okay when we think about his range of hands that he's gonna see bet here. We're at 61%. I think that's fine, but we have a caller here, so this guy's wide range called. Let's get this range back in here. So what did he call with? I think he's going to call with all of the pairs. I think he's more likely to call with draws, maybe a 2-card backdoor flush draw, hoping. But I think gut shots, open-ended straight draws, the pairs. Is he going to raise straights and sets? Probably not at this time. Over pairs, maybe 8s and 9s. He's going to raise those. So 8s, 9s, 10s he would raise. Top pair, I think it should justify raising. Pocket pair below top pair, that's going to be a gut shot. Middle pair, some of the gut shots, and we can thin it out. But what we're basically doing is getting, making sure that he's going to be calling with some sort of draw. So open and straight draw, gut shots. I think 2-pair set straights will likely raise here. Because he's showing, out of 39 hands, he is showing to be somewhat aggressive. 26% pre-flop raise, 6%, 3-bet, small sample size, but something we have to go with. Let's open up our flop statistics. So his flop aggression frequency is 33%. So maybe he's not going to raise. Maybe he's not going to raise the over pair or the top pairs. Maybe we'll just leave those in, since even though his pre-flop numbers look like he might raise a lot, his flop stats doesn't suggest he's overly aggressive. So we'll go with those. If we look at our hand versus that range, you should see that we are ahead. So I said, I think calling could be okay because he's willing, or he's capable of firing a second barrel. But I think raising might be a little bit better. Because if we call, he might call, and he might call with draws, with any pair. Since we already have 2 people in, it's kind of reducing the number of combinations that he's going to have that could call. So if we call, we're taking it to the turn, and then we have to think what turn cards are going to be good for us. I think any low card that comes, a 2, a 3, a 4, a 5, a 6, or a 7, I think all of those kind of fit his range, because he's going to say if he's ahead, he's probably still going to be ahead, because I don't really have I could have ace 2, but I don't have like 2, 5. I could have 5, 6, could have 7, 6, probably don't have 7, 5, could have maybe 4, 5 at a small frequency. This guy could, but I think raising kind of applies pressure with our overpair and should make it a little bit easier to play. So if any card less than a 10 falls, we might be able to bet the turn and pick it up. But the pot's going to be getting big now, so effective stacks are going to be essentially 75 big blinds, because he had 76, we had 75. I think raising might be a little bit better here, because we'll fold out the ace high hands. So if an ace comes, we should have the best hand. I think overpair is going to call or raise. A set's going to call or raise. Top pair is probably going to call. pocket pair below top pair is probably going to call, but all of those top pair below pocket pair below top pair, I think they're going to call as part of the gut shot in the open-ended straight draw. And if the gut shot doesn't get there on the turn, then he's probably just going to give up to a turn bet. So I think a raise would be a little bit better. And villain 5 calls. So I think with villain 5 calling, he's got probably essentially the same type of cards. Some sort of pair, some sort of draw. Maybe has 2 overcards, but I mean 8 big blinds out of position. I think that's a lot less likely. See a turn of a 5, and I think that's probably a card. If I were to raise and I get called, that's not a card that I'm super excited about because I think 6s are going to be in calling ranges. So let's see what happens. Villain 5 checks. Villain 7 bets 4 big blinds, which is kind of intriguing. Why would he bet so small? And I kind of think that he's betting so small because he now just hit his straight and probably has potentially the straight draw or a flush draw with that. So hit the straight or picked up, flush draw and is hoping to get a free turn card or at least control the price. So, of those cards, you can see that we're going to be way behind because that's straight. Not only that, but this guy now calls. So once he calls, we have to think about what is he going to call with. Straight's going to call. Set's probably only going to call. 2 pairs going to call. Over pairs going to call. Top pairs might call. 7, 8 probably would call. I don't see why top pair wouldn't call for a bet so small. Flush draw is going to call. Our gut shot's probably still going to call. It's not going to, he's going to basically have the same hands, and against that hand, we're at 30%. So 22% against one guy, 30% against the other guy. And I bet we're only going to be like 30% against him too. We're not looking good. Even if we catch a 10, how likely are we to beat them? 2/3 of his hands is a straight based on this small bet. Almost 50% of this guy's hands is a straight. Even though we're getting the pot odds to chase that 10, I think it's a losing proposition. So even if we catch a 10, I think we're still gonna lose. This is a fold. I called, and then this guy calls. So again, this guy, we're not even working through his hand, but he's gonna probably have something similar. He's going to have some similar distribution here where it's entirely possible he can have a straight or 2 pair. And then the 3 spades gets there. So villain 5 checks, and now all of a sudden he bets, half pot. So what is he going to bet half pot with? Well, quads is a possibility, so trip 3s. I think the straight becomes less likely now that the spade gets there. So I think the flush is based on that bet sizing. I think a straight could have checked or bet smaller. You're going to see that basically any hand that he's betting, he beats us. And now villain 8 folds. So once we know the flush didn't get there, gut shot's unlikely to get there. Top pair probably doesn't call anymore. Over pair probably calls. It's 6%. 2 pair. I don't. The weaker 2 pairs definitely. So like 3s and 4s, 5s and 4s. I don't think that's gonna call. The over pair 10s and 4s, 9s and 4s, 8s and 4s could call. The sets, which now become full house. Hold on, let's get that. Add the river. So you'll see straight's going to call, flush is going to call, full house is going to call. All of those are going to call. The overpair's probably going to call, but I think all of this other stuff is just going to fold. So when you look at that, 21% is folding. Most of them are top pair or middle pair. He's going to fold, and I think once he folds, I think this guy's going to probably also fold. Probably has the same type of ranges. The run out was just horrible. Now I know we were calling because he's capable of firing 2 pair rolls, And he did fire a small 2-barrel, but then he came back and bet big, and this is kind of unusual for him. So I think we have to give him credit, and you have to say, well, what is he saying he can beat? It's almost saying that he can beat the straight that's obvious out there. And perhaps he's saying he can beat that because he has a flush. I called. I think that was a mistake. Villain 5 called. I'm sorry, Villain 5 folded, and we see a showdown, and he shows 7. So I didn't have full house on here. And the reason I didn't was because I assumed, I think at this spot, that his bet, he wouldn't have bet as large as he would have bet larger with his set. I guess we should have looked at that. So he bet, I guess he made a half pot bet because he had trip 7s, and then he got scared on the turn because the straight could have gotten there with the 6, and then once he filled up, he went ahead and bet big. Okay, I can see that. So we'll say we didn't get this hand. I had a feeling we were beat on the river. We should never have called. I kind of had a feeling we were beat on the turn, based on the bet sizing and the fact that we had a caller. Maybe the turn fold would have been too tight, but definitely the river fold would have been appropriate. All right, let me close this out and get hand number 2. So hand number 2 is also pocket 10s from the cutoff. We have an early position raiser, raises to 2 big blinds. So on this raiser, he's playing 30% pre-flop raise, 4%, 30% VPIP, 4% pre-flop raise out of 134 hands. His early position stats is 10 and 3. He raises small. I think that small bet could be something. We'll take some of the premiums out. Could have all of the suited aces because he bets small. Kind of think they tend to bet larger with these premiums with aces, kings, queens, jacks, ace, king, ace, queen. Without any information, we probably should add more. Now, I do have limp re-raise with aces, so perhaps with his aces and kings, he may do the limp re-raise to try to trap. But I think this is probably okay limping range, or okay raising range. I do think ace jack is probably going to limp, and it's maybe not all of these. Let's get rid of 5s and belows. That might be a little bit better. And we have 10s, so we've got 10 hearts, 10 spades. We definitely can't fold. We're too strong. I think if he limped, we raise, and then if he 3-bets, we just fold. So we should raise this hand, and we should probably raise it up to 9 or 10 big blinds, make it more of an appropriate 3-bet, apply pressure. I didn't do that. I just called, and I think that was a pretty big mistake, because I think when we call, we encourage one of these other players, maybe 2 of these players, to call. He's called 2-bets, 28%. He could have called in position. This guy would have it's one more big blind. Could have called, one more big blind. He shows 26%. So we could have gone multi-way. That's it. I think with 10s we could raise it, get heads up, and then when you see his range of hands, you can see he's got a lot of these smaller pocket pairs. On a favorable board, he may call a flop, one time on a dry board with these cards, and then fold to the turn bet. So we have opportunity to make some money here. Board is 7 of diamonds, 7 of spades, 4 clubs. So this is kind of the board that I'm thinking about. If I raise and he calls, we could see bet on this, and we'll probably get called by these small pocket pairs at least once. And just make a little bit more money. So now he bets 4.1. So that's kind of interesting. So he bets small, and now he's betting bigger. I think this is probably a pocket pair, one of these over pairs. I think a pocket pair below top pair, maybe. His c-bet stats 100% when he's in position. He doesn't look overly aggressive. And I think quads would have just checked. The a7, I think, probably just checks. So I do think it's one of these pocket pairs. It's the over pairs is most likely eights, nines, and tens, or sixes. I think that's probably most likely. Could he have jacks in there? Maybe. We don't know how strong he's going to play jacks. So I think calling's okay. When you think about the range of hands that he's doing this with, I definitely think calling's appropriate. Do I think he's going to do it with overcards? Maybe. We could. The idea is if he does it with overcards, we're at 82%. We're way ahead. If he doesn't, we're at 88%. We're still way ahead. So I think this bet sizing, I think we can call and expect it to call with value. So 9 of clubs hits. That does hit one of those pairs that we have here. So now we've got possibility of trips. And let's see what he does. So now he bets half pot. So he went larger. So 4 out of 5, 80% pot, and then all of a sudden scaled it back to half pot. That seems a little bit suspicious. So that's either I just hit my full house, or I just hit, I hit my full house, or I still have my overpair, and I'm scared of what you have. And that's really about it. So pocket pair below top pair, maybe he gets scared. But I think with that smaller bet, he's hoping to get called. So just looking at the hand distributions, it's pocket pair below top pairs 37.5%, weak pairs 37.5%. We called. He has to be scared that we're going to have a 7. I don't think he's going to be betting those. I think at this point it's this overpair, it's this full house. I think we're beat. He scaled it back, and we kind of got into this situation just by how he plays. This is a rough fold, but are there ways that we can get around it? So if we just call, could a club bail us out? I don't think so, because I think of these hands that he's betting, where he's betting this size, and then scaling down, I do think it's heavy in that full house, and he's not going to be scared of the club. All right, so I did call, and then the jack of diamonds hits, and pot's 27.3, and he bets now less than half pot. I don't think he's betting tens anymore. I think it's full house. I think we are beat. He's dead. He likes his hand 3 times now. He's beat, and he's a passive player. So he's a passive player and is now bet 3 times. He likes his hand. No matter what we can say, I think we're going to be beat. I called. I think that's different from the guy from the first time. I think we could have called because he could fire flop and turn. That's with most, if not all of his range, any sort of draw. And then on the river, if he bets again, he probably spiked that jack. So we see it. He shows aces. We're behind. So I didn't have full house. I didn't have aces in this range because I had to limp re-raise with aces from early position. I kind of assumed with that small bet that he would have raised larger with all of these hands. Knowing that he doesn't, we can probably eliminate a lot of those suited aces and say maybe his pre-flop raising range is something like that. Now that's going to change our distributions. So now when we look at flops and see what he's betting, definitely over pair. I think pocket pair below top pair, maybe at least one time. It's 44.8%. When the 9 hits and he's scaled down, now I think he's starting to represent that he is somewhat scared of his hand. I don't think eights is going to play. I don't think the weak pair is going to continue betting for a passive player. So full house over pair. And then once that jack of diamonds hits, he's now bet again smaller. Full house is a possibility of doing that, but the overpair is even more likely. So now when you look at it, of those hands, 75%, we basically don't beat any of those. So we should have found a fold. Even though we didn't have the aces in his range, we should have been able to find a fold. So what we're going to do is also mark in here. We have to add the note limp re-raise with ace from early position. Min bet from EP with ace ace. Bet 80% flop. With overpair and 50% turn. Possible trick board. So just to kind of clarify, so now we can see that not only does he limp raise with aces, but it looks like his small raises, maybe he's raising small when he has premium hands to try to encourage callers. We still have to figure out what does his min bet mean. His min bet. All right, so I'm going to say we didn't get this. We misread what he was capable of making this small 2-bets with. But I think eventually, based on how it was playing, we kind of got to the final hand where I think it was more than likely going to be full house or possibly an overpair. Definitely the overpair becomes much easier when you include your aces, kings, and queens in there, and jacks plus, which is basically jacks plus. All right, hope you enjoyed it. Look tomorrow for a few more hands.